While the history of music starts thousands and thousands of years ago, we can all agree the most nerdy of all eras would be classical music, and we'll be here to talk about it. Classical music came from Europe, and in case you didn't know what that looks like, here's a map. Anyhow, this music era lasted between the 1700s and the mid-1800s, making it a very long time ago for sure. It was at this time when many people agreed that it was time to put down the harpsichord for its way new hotter brother, the piano. Well, I forgot to record this, but the main advantage of having a piano is that the keys could be pressed harder and softer to create like the harshness and the softness of the sound. Yeah, magical. According to this book I stole from Serena, this book mentions how melodies from the time are more graceful and have an elegant character. Anyhow, Professor Dr. Smith will now talk to you about his thoughts on this era while I go grab a lemon tea.
Classical music introduces more dynamics where there is crescendo, so that music gets gradually louder, and diminuendo, so that the music gets gradually quieter. In classical music, rhythm can be described as simple and clear, lacking in anything too complex. In classical music, phrases within the pieces are longer in length but evenly divided throughout the piece. Phrases are commonly similar to one another or repeated. In classical music, the melody is beautiful, and the bass line of the pieces are normally in chords. The list of instruments used in classical music consists of violin, viola, cello, double bass, recorder or flute from the woodwind family, clarinet, oboe and bassoon, trumpet and horns, timpani also known as kettle drums and sometimes triangles, hand cymbals and bass drums, and finally the piano. In terms of tonality, classical music utilizes both major and minor keys. A homophonic texture is commonly seen within this period, which is normally a melody line with an accompanying line. And finally, the harmony of classical music is more simple compared to Baroque.
Anyways, let's look at 3 pieces by 3 different composers from the time. We'll start with Cello Concerto No. 1. In this piece, the melody line is played on the cello and other instruments, including the violin, viola, cello, oboe, and horn. The song also encompasses the whole orchestra. The song is occasionally accompanied by a piano. The tempo is in a moderate range, and the song as a whole has a very relaxing atmosphere. The articulation in this piece uses ornaments and trills. There is utilization of both staccato and legato, however legatos are shorter in this piece and normally played when the notes are slurred. The melody line in this piece is kept in the MF and F range throughout the whole movement. The solo part and the orchestral part does not have any obvious dynamic changes. There are many short notes in this piece, and here you can see semiquavers and demi-semiquavers. There are also an abundance of triplets and sextuplets in this piece. The piece starts in C major, bringing out a general sense of happiness. However, as we approach the middle of the song, F sharps are added, changing tonality into a G major.
We now move almost 30 years forward to Serenade No. 13 in G major, K 525, Ein Night Music, composed by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. This song is played in string quintet, which includes the violin, viola, cello, and double bass. The melody line is played with the violin but at a higher pitch. The harmony is played by the viola and cello, creating a very steady bass line. The tonality of the song is in G major. Later in the song, the tonality is changed into a minor key. However, it eventually returns to G major again. This piece, like the previous piece, also uses ornaments and trills. Furthermore, most notes are again short in this piece. There are staccato notes that are played with a very little bow, and each note is very clean and precise. Tremoloes are used and played on the violin in the background. With this combination of features, we get a sound that is mysterious and surprising. The song is played in the allegro speed range and the tempo is kept steady. The dynamics of the song is played loud and accents are used to emphasize the important notes. Within this piece, though the violin plays the main melody part, as the song progresses there is like a conversation between the cello, basses, and violins, echoing the same phrase in the piece. We now move on to a piece another 13 years later, which is towards the end of the classical era. Symphony No. 5 in C minor, Opus 67, Finale, composed by Ludwig van Beethoven. The instrumentation again utilizes instruments within the orchestra including the violin, viola, cello double bass, flute piccolo, clarinets, oboes, bassoons, contrabassoons, trumpets, horns, trombone, tuba, and timpani. This piece is in the allegro tempo range. The tempo changes when it heads into the final section of the piece, where it speeds up faster and faster. Both legato and staccato are used in this piece, but the majority of notes are kept short, allowing the song giving a greater sense of urgency. There are uses of tremoloes in this piece, adding to the sense of urgency like previously mentioned. Chords are scattered throughout the piece, the majority of which are played on string instruments. Chords are fast to change and most of them last no longer than a beat. Ornaments are used in the piece which serve to decorate the piece. Rhythmically, the piece utilizes dotted rhythms that can be seen at the beginning of the piece. Different types of quavers were used in this piece and are normally four in a group repeating in different notes. In terms of the dynamics, the song is kept in the fortissimo range, also known as FF, meaning that it is ridiculously loud, but not supercalifragilisticexpialidociously loud. This creates an atmosphere which again emphasizes the urgency of the piece, but also highlights the magnitude of the urgency. The last movement features forsando, where notes are played with more stress or accents. Towards the midsection of the piece, the dynamics contrast between loud and quiet. As the end of the piece approaches, the forte piano is used multiple times, creating a monumental contrast, giving the song a mysterious feeling before arriving at the final destination.
Anyhow, taking these three old pieces from these three very old composers, we see a similarity between these pieces utilizing similar techniques. Similar elements include tonality and instrumentation as well as tempo. We clearly see how each piece utilizes these techniques to invoke emotions into the listener. Thank you for watching.